let's get to the second game on Saturday afternoon. This I watched from a family party. We'll talk about that in a minute, I'm sure. Baltimore Ravens 34-17 over the Steelers. It was 24-17. Russell Wilson throws a pick six to Marlon Humphrey. I mean, high-level story of this game, I think, is Russell Wilson turnovers at inopportune times. Of course, a pick six and a fumble on his way in. 10-5 now for both teams, tied atop the AFC North. The Ravens creeping right back into the AFC North playoff picture here.
They really were. This was the game that Baltimore hasn't been able to have against Pittsburgh. The Steelers have usually done a really good job of basically shutting down Lamar Jackson, forcing him into bad games or substandard games, and have kept these games really close. This was the game, though, where Baltimore just went, not this time. Lamar Jackson was great. Derrick Henry was great. And when those two things happen, that puts the Steelers offense in a bit of a hole, and they're still without George Pickens. That's a really important player for them. They weren't able to keep pace.
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted out during the game from my family party, so this was the setup here. We go from the museum to a family Christmas party of my wife's. So I made sure by 30 seconds in there, I had the double box going at the party, watching the college football playoff and this game on. We set it up pretty well. So we made do with this one at the party. But Lamar Jackson, my whole takeaway from the last matchup was the Steelers made life difficult for Lamar. They made all the windows a little bit tighter, and he was just missing throws.
Right.
He hit those throws in this game.
Yeah.
He hit a few of those big time throws. And, people came back and said, yeah, the Steelers are banged up. It's their, backups in the secondary. That's all true. Look, the Steelers might be hitting the wrong end of their injury variance on both sides of the ball right now at this time of the year. But they were still tight window throws, Sam. They were still difficult throws for Lamar. And he hit 3 or 4 of those that ended up being not the difference in the game, but, of course, a huge difference in the game before Derrick Henry started to do, his creating his big plays in the second half as well.
Yeah, though it's always worth remembering, the little plays that bounce your way in games, early in games, that change the whole course of the football game, right? Early in this game, Baltimore fumbled the ball twice, recovered both of them. Then later, you get Russell Wilson takes off scrambling, gets inside the 5, and they're whatever the sort of hoop dreams equivalent of the red mist descended, Russell Wilson normally is maybe the best quarterback in the NFL at sliding before anybody gets near him and not taking the contact. He kind of got to the 5 and was like, oh, I can John Elway. I can get this. I can score. Went in, just collapsed into a hit, fumble the ball away inside the 5-yard line. You've got Baltimore gets lucky in their fumble luck. Russell Wilson makes a mistake, fumbles the ball away. Massive swings in Baltimore's favor. If this was a normal Steelers-Ravens game, maybe the Ravens lose one of those fumbles and the Steelers get a much more favorable game script situation earlier on, and we're talking about a completely different dynamic.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's when we're previewing the games, we're not like, hey, this team's going to fumble 3 times and they're going to, get all the luck or whatever. All the fumble luck's going to go one way. There's definitely something to that. I mean, I think there's the bottom line for the Steelers fans, for me, is we talked a lot about Russ maybe raising the ceiling of their offense. I still believe that's true. It doesn't mean it's great every single week. There's games where Russell Wilson's, just going to be okay. And in this game, a couple bad decisions, man. I want to shout out to Darius Washington, who's just made a ton of plays this year for the Ravens. The great Mike Renner, who was just on here about 20 minutes ago, loved our Darius Washington coming out of the draft in whatever it was, 2018. This was his first year, actually. We all loved him. It wasn't just Mike. First year, he's actually getting extended playing time. And every time you look up, breaking up a pass, making a key play, he's been outstanding this year for the Ravens. And I think, they just they made a whole bunch of huge plays that they definitely didn't make in that first matchup.
Yeah, no, they did. I think a big part of this, Russell Wilson made a couple of bad mistakes. The one we talked about, we got a miscommunication. So we talked up Rashad Bateman before the game. Bateman has a really nice touchdown. The Steelers' secondary is pretty banged up. They were able to get that touchdown, gave them a touchdown lead. It was 14-7 at that point. Then there's a miscommunication between Lamar Jackson and Bateman for an interception. But the very next play, Russell Wilson throws it back to them. And you're like, okay, two massive plays where Pittsburgh could have hung in this game. They gave the ball away. What did this game do, in your opinion, to the ever more eloquent MVP discourse? Because Lamar Jackson, I thought, played at an MVP kind of level against a legit defense. We said this could be his signature MVP moment, only it wasn't because Derrick Henry went nuts as well, so nobody cared.
I can't believe you're dragging me into this discourse that you hate.
Uh-huh.
You know what I think is going to happen? So many people are so caught up in the discourse part of it, in the narrative part of it, right? We were calling out Dan O for declaring the end of the MVP race last week. It's like, dude, there's still, 3 divided by 7? There's still 23.5% of the season to go here, Dan.
Doesn't count.
And I think someone called him out, at least on that, on ESPN. Again, that's like throwing your Heisman vote in there like before Thanksgiving. I got my Heisman's locked up. Doesn't matter what happens the last 3 games of the season. It's ludicrous. Somebody's going to get at the end of the season and say, Lamar Jackson's stats are what? Is what I actually don't have them right in front of me, but 4 picks now, right? And like 35 touchdowns or whatever it is, passing. And,
yeah, they're nuts.
So somebody's going to get to the end of the season and look at the stats side by side and be like, maybe Lamar, what's so funny? People are walking in over here laughing at me.
Look.
Just trying to work. I'm at work, please.
We could just keep it professional, people.
I am trying to work here, okay?
That's what you wear.
Of course, it's Christmas. Of course this is what I'm wearing.
Yeah.
Anyway, people are going to get to the end of the season and look at Lamar Jackson's stats and say, oh, maybe we screwed up.
Yeah. I mean,
and I'm not saying Josh Allen doesn't deserve. I'm not saying either way. I'm just saying like people are underrating Lamar's season right now.
If you add in his rushing, right, he's got 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's averaging
some fumbles in there that so you'd have to balance out some fumble turnover.
He's averaging 8.9 yards per attempt and 6.1 yards per rush. I mean, from a statistic, but this is like Dak Prescott a year ago, right? Like Dak Prescott had the best stats last year and nobody cared because Lamar Jackson was the narrative winner.
Well, but last year it made sense, right? Because Dak didn't have any good games against good teams, and it was fine. Like in most years, I'm adding up the total, not the totals. I'm looking at the totality, every single throw, every single play, and that matters. The narrative stuff mattered more last year to me because all the guys competing with Lamar statistically were literally throwing games away or just didn't, were no-shows in big games. Like Dak, he beat up on bad teams. That's not the case with Lamar Jackson this year. So it's Lamar and Josh Allen. That's fine. They'll take it. Burrow's right up there with both as well. So we'll see what happens. You're a voter, Sam, so you can still be swayed here these last couple of weeks, especially if Burrow, carries the Bengals to the playoffs. You never know.
It's a fascinating dynamic because I hate the award and I'm not wedded to any one of these sort of ridiculous narrative takes. So my vote is out here to be swayed by a compelling argument, right? Whether that's whether I'm making this appeal to Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry directly. If you guys do something to influence my vote, you could have it. That's 1 of 50. Or whether I'm making this appeal to listeners or viewers, like if you have a compelling argument for one of these guys, I'm open because right now I am undecided on who the MVP is.
Great. So you're just astute viewer these next couple weeks. And
there's a question
Lamar,
from the chat.
Burrow, Allen, Saquon. State your case.
There's a question from the chat from our super listener, whatever you call those people, Mohal. Who do you think that the lowest net worth AP voter is? Is it me? Is there somebody worth less money than me that has an AP vote?
Wow, that cuts deep. You just signed a big deal with 33rd team here, man.
Yeah,
don't underestimate.
We're building this thing from scratch. You gotta start in low. Maybe in a few years we'll climb up the rankings.
You should have seen who they had as AP voters a couple years ago before they rejigged the whole list. It was like, this guy hasn't written in 12 years.
I'd have definitely beaten some of those people. Surely.
Yes.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.